Accidental Runner, Episode 4, with Emily. Hey, that's me. I have no idea how this is going to evolve today. I don't have anyone lined up this week for a conversation. This is going to be me. Just me. Not just me. Me. It's going to be me. Never downplay yourself with a just. It's going to be me having a bit of a chat to myself, to you. And yeah, we'll see how this evolves. In the spirit of fucking around and finding out of that very first episode, we were on this journey together. I wasn't sure what it was going to become. I do have guests lined up to have conversations with in coming weeks, but it is something that is possibly not going to happen every week. But it was a huge weekend for me out in the other capacity that I exist in on the trails, which is in my photography and capturing the Wonderfalls event by Trails Plus, which was absolutely phenomenal. The amount of water and mud that was on the trails was pretty cool, pretty epic. Made for some great photos, and it also made for some pretty serious faces from participants as they navigated all of that. But there was also waterfalls and magic scenery. So episode 4, an accidental podcast. So, as I mentioned, this is going to be an episode where it's going to be me having a conversation with you, having a chat, having just shooting the shit. You can enjoy me rambling on about just some stuff. It has been a pretty interesting ride so far. And I think what I've found most interesting is that, like with most things I do, I jump in and then I figure out how it's all going to look and how it's going to evolve. And that's been super fun to be a part of. But also part of that has meant the learning process along the way. So in relation to the trails and relation to this, it's like this perfect kind of blend of just always trying to figure it out, diving in and working it all out. When I began trail running, it was very much a experience of, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know. I don't have the gear. I don't have the look. I don't have the shape. I don't have any of it. But I just figured it out as I went along, and I asked questions and I learned from others and I found community. In this space of like, it feels like everyone's got a podcast, it's, I sort of, heading into it, I was kind of thinking, well, who the hell am I to start this? And I was reminded over the weekend having a chat with Hayley, who is going to join me on a podcast at some point in the future. I'm really looking forward to that conversation. She was reminding me of a conversation we had earlier this year, talking about the podcast and how I had no idea what I was going to be doing, and how to put this all together and how to piece it all together. And the cool thing about that was there was another podcaster there that was just like, you just need some way of recording your voice. You just need some way of putting it together, and you just make it happen. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so this is it. This is raw. This is real. And we'll figure it out as we go along. Some of the gear's getting a bit better. Like it is what it is. But at the essence of it, it's about, and interestingly, the parallel in running as well, in trail running, is that if you have a really strong why, if you have that purpose and that philosophy of why you want to create something or do something, then you are going to strive towards that. You are going to be driven to make that work out and make that happen. And if it doesn't, if you fail along the way, like, that's so okay. Because failure is kind of like Well, failure is part of the process. You're not always going to succeed. You're not always going to hit the mark. And learning is messy. Um, Beginning something new that you're not aware of and not aware of how it's going to look and what it's actually, when you don't know, things are messy. When you learn to walk, you fall over. When you learn to talk, you say things wrong. When as a child, as children, we just step into it, we figure it out. We learn how to walk, we learn how to eat, we learn how to do all of those things, right? And we don't care that we're failing along the way because that's lessons um, that teach us how to do the thing better. Um, and running was the same. And this podcast is the same. And my photography was the same. Every time I've stepped into a new space within that, um, I've started and I've made mistakes and I've figured it out and I've moved forward and I've made more mistakes. And as you try and step into another level of that, you're gonna you're gonna fuck up. You're gonna make mistakes. It's okay. And I think we kind of look at this perfection of um, like social media and stuff, and we think that that's how it's meant to look. Or, you know, they look like they've got it together, but you don't see all of the outtakes and you don't see all of the things that haven't worked in the photos that you don't like. And even, runners that are out there taking photos of their own run, they're not always posting the photo that looked crap. They're not sharing the photo of the downstrike, are they? Like it's they're sharing the best version of themselves, and that's so much of it. And what I think in trail running, especially, um, oh, look, and running and any other sport, is there's moments of true, raw, genuine feeling and emotion that maybe aren't aesthetically beautiful to look at, but they speak to us and they tell us something. So, translating that into the other space that I exist in trails, which is photography, I'm looking for those raw, genuine, authentic moments that happen. And the more exhausted, the more tired, the longer the race, the more uh, crazy the environment or the weather, the more incredible the imagery is going to become. And that's really like that's where the truth is. That's where the magic is. Now, I might look at something and think, I don't love that photo of myself, or I don't think that was the best version of whatever, but I think we need to see more of that. We need to see more of the raw, genuine, real things, because guaranteed what you see in yourself, others don't see in you, like the flaws that you see, the flaws that you would see in yourself. Others aren't looking at that. They might see something remarkable and you're going to sit in there, look at it and pick it apart. So, you know what? If this is anything, if this podcast is anything, it's that never say, never ever say never. And also just fucking try. Step into the space. If you want to be in that space, step into that space. If you want to try something new, try something new. If you want to take your adventure, your journey, your experience to the next level, ask, step into that space. This year in particular, well, maybe we're going to get to a conversation now about a very pivotal moment this year that happened. Hopefully, I don't get emotional about it. Or genuine. We're talking about genuine. So maybe if I do get emotional, maybe that's okay. So earlier this year, well, this year has definitely been about, I've stepped into some spaces that have been scary. I've stepped into some things that I just don't know what the outcome is going to be. Sometimes you can kind of predict an outcome. You can kind of predict that, I'm going to step into that and maybe I won't do as well as I thought, but I'll complete it or whatever. But this year, I stepped into a space that I was completely unfamiliar with. And as it turned out, even in my wildest imaginings, it was still so much more uh, overwhelming and so much more out of my comfort zone. Now, there was probably a lot of things that kind of came into it outside of the event in particular. But so this year, I entered a race down in Tasmania called Diverge. It was the first year that they were doing it, and it's a remarkable event, truly epic. Um, Proper sky running, proper kind of, I don't know, like there's nothing, I've experienced nothing like it. And other, even the elite top athletes were saying that they hadn't experienced anything quite like it as well. Now, I had always thought that GPT, Grampians Peaks Trail, was probably the epitome of what difficult could look like. That terrain is like so gnarly that I was like, that's got to be the peak. Um, that's got to be like the level of insanity that makes people truly step into discomfort. Then I went to Queenstown. Then I saw the mountain. And then I climbed up that mountain. Uh, it was the hardest, most insane thing I have ever experienced. So I entered the 25-kilometer Mount Owen um, run, and it was something else. So it was windy. It's so rugged and so raw and so terrifyingly beautiful, but so just so raw. Um, so I was kind of exhausted going into this event. Um, just I think mentally kind of wrecked. I was just probably more mentally tired than I really realized. Um, and so I signed up for this event knowing that it was going to be something else, something that I completely was unfamiliar with and afraid of, and that was cool. That's why I chose it. That's why I stepped into that. And so I entered that race knowing I could do the distance, but not knowing what that was going to look like. And as it turned out, I couldn't do that distance that day uh, because I became so overwhelmed and so scared that I couldn't I couldn't finish that race. I was pulled off course. Um, Now I went all the way across the top. DNFs suck. DNFs hurt so bad. And that was a particularly brutal DNF. But I have never cried so gutturally, and so been so devastated and so stripped back to my absolute core on a run. I thought I had, but I had never been stripped back so emotionally, and to the point where I couldn't gain my I couldn't get a good hold on my breath. Um, I'm okay with being last. I'm okay with being with the sweeps if I have to. Like that's this whole adventure. Um, but um, and everything was going fine to a certain point. Once we actually climbed Mount Owen and hit the bit where it went from running to rock scrambling to rock climbing to um, traversing the top of this peak in wind that at times felt like it was going to rip you off the mountain itself, um, but also to be so in awe of that space and what was around us and the views and that it was remarkable. But it was also unachievable for me that day. And that was pretty like my ego took a massive, massive hit, and I was stripped completely back to my core, like utterly back to my core. Um, and that ride down the mountain, after doing probably what was the worst of the entire course, um, I I had to really um, regroup, and I had to really reassess. Um, it stripped me so far back to my core that it took me days, weeks to actually uh, kind of come to terms with it. And I actually ended up going into Reiki sessions afterwards because it became a point, this event, it became a point of something needs to shift, something needs to change. There are things that I have not dealt with, and there is a fear so deeply ingrained in me that has made me so afraid. Um, and maybe ego was a part of it too. And showing up for ego and showing up for the wrong reasons. Anyway, went through some Reiki, went through a bunch of things, and really, really worked on that, because after that event, the next big thing was attempting to run the miler distance again. And that was that was something I knew was not going to even be remotely achievable if I didn't deal with the things that were coming up on this 25K run. So that run changed everything for me. I sought help, I got help, and I showed up to the start line of the miler a completely different human being. And I knew again at the end of the miler, I was going to be another type of version of myself as well. So Diverge changed me. Diverge stripped me back and taught me that I needed to deal with the mental load as well as the physical. And as it stands, Diverge is an event that I definitely love. I definitely think is a remarkable event and is run beautifully and is fantastic. But I don't think I don't think those sky runs are for me. I think if I went back, I think I'd be hitting the smaller distances for the views of the mountain, not to actually climb it. I'm not sure my soul and my being is ready to face that again. And this is the only race that I've ever done, and the only DNF I've ever had where I have felt like I didn't have unfinished business. I sort of felt like maybe it's not for me. Maybe this kind of event isn't for me. Or maybe one day I might return and hit this event and see what happens. But I definitely don't feel that pull like I have felt in other events where I've DNF'd. I'm like, I've got to come back and I've got to get this done. It was a race that changed me. So, yeah, standing on the start line, having dealt with the things I needed to deal with and go through the processes that I went through and healed a whole lot of stuff and worked on a whole lot of stuff, I stood on the start line of the miler, a very different person. And I think I explained it. I was telling people as well when they were asking in the lead up, are you ready? And I'm like, I do feel quietly ready, but I also don't have any ego attached to it. I was genuinely curious as to what I could do. Can I achieve this? Can I turn up to this? Can I turn up for myself? Am I able to get this done? Can I trust the process? Um, and it was always going to be a different person that I met at the end of that race, too. Now, I didn't complete, spoiler alert, I didn't complete that miler, but I made it 133 kilometers, and I've never run that far. And it took me somewhere I've never been before. And when I DNF'd that, I didn't feel any sense of failure. I felt disappointment for sure, because I really want to get that freaking distance. But I showed up the best I could and gave everything I had. And when I stopped and my body practically broke down instantly, I kind of realized that I really had pushed to a point beyond anything that I have ever pushed to before. And if you've seen the little Instagram thing of me having the bit of a teary in that hurt locker of absolute, oh, sleep exhaustion, exhaustion and hurt and all of that. If you've seen that, you kind of probably can relate. The little quiver in the voice and the break as you want to cry. It was definitely something else. But the person I met at the end of all that had entered it with without ego, without needing to be seen. The person that I met at the other end of that was like the complete version of me. And I never would have thought that trail running would have really brought something like that. Like I knew it could change you. I knew it could evolve you. And I've been to the end of finish lines, and I've hit finish lines where I've been a completely different person from start to finish. Like the first 100K I did, the person at the end of that was so accomplished and so so in awe of what I could achieve. And the person that completed UTA was like, that was to hell and back for sure, and then to hell and back again. I was a different person at the end of that as well. But I've never never, come to the other end of something and felt so accomplished, but so grounded and so proud and so not affected by the outcome. Yes, I was disappointed. I want to preface that because I didn't go out seeking a DNF. Like no one goes out seeking a DNF. And I really, really wanted to finish, which is why I was so fucking sad at the end of all of that. But it was this version of me at the other end of it has never been and never felt so whole. And I guess that's kind of where all of this has come from too, right? Like, I feel like I've finally stepped into this person that I can be. I feel like I've finally stepped into someone that asks questions and steps into spaces and asks to be in spaces. And if that doesn't work out, then okay. And if it does, great. I've asked to be in spaces. I've asked for things that I want. And I've never felt so whole in that process and not hung up on what the outcome or the answer of that question is, asking if I can show up to something, asking if I can step into some space and asking if I can be part of something. And then, letting go of what the answer is. It's a yes or it's a no. And sometimes it's a no, and sometimes that just means it's not aligned. And it's been remarkable. So who knew? Trails teaching us all of these lessons and the process that this year has taken. And from the beginning of this podcast, where I had no idea what I was going to be talking about and feeling like I've actually shared something kind of hopefully people can understand and relate to, feels kind of good. If I can step into these spaces, if I can step into something, if I can try something, if I can just fuck around and find out, then God, you guys can too. Like, step into the spaces. If you want to be somewhere, don't overanalyze. Maybe step into it and figure it out. Ask the questions. Ask those around you. How do I step into this space? How do I do this thing? You're never going to feel ready. You're never going to feel capable. You're going to make mistakes. And that's the joy of it. That's the beauty of it. That's the rawness and the genuineness and the truthfulness of it. And if you step into yourself and if you step into the places that you want to be and you're welcomed into those spaces and you feel embraced by those spaces, if you fully step into who you are, those people that are meant to be in the community that you're meant to have will exist around you. They'll be drawn to that. if you put out what you genuinely are, like, love, and I think, okay, maybe it's the phase of life that I'm at because I'm very, like, approaching 50 and, like, just have zero fucks to give about what other people think anymore, and just speak my truth and hold my truth and know my truth. I know who I am now. It's such a remarkable space to exist in, and it's such a powerful space. And as women, particularly, who for so long it feels like have been invisible at this age, there's so many of us stepping into our truths and into our spaces and just owning it and taking up the space and just fucking do it. It's so exciting to be part of this phase of life, and for the younger people as well, to see that, to see us stepping into these spaces, to see us become our true selves. It's empowering for them too. So, on that thought, thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to episode 4 of An Accidental Podcast with me, Emily. This time it was me having a conversation and seeing how this is all going to evolve. Thank you for joining on the ride. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing this podcast. It means the absolute world to me that people are embracing it. It's a beautiful thing. I thank you so much. If you know of anybody who you think would be a great guest on this show as well, please shoot me a message, send me a DM, introduce me to somebody who you think would be a great asset or a great addition to the stories from the trails and from the adventure that this is becoming, in all its true, gritty, awesome, messy kind of evolution. So thank you for listening to An Accidental Podcast, and I will look forward to chatting with you again.